All right, so I think I'm recording. Let's take a look at this problem. They want us to find the inverse and then determine if that inverse is a function. So here we should be familiar, you should be familiar with this function. It's a quadratic function. And we know that the graph is a parabola. And this quadratic function is even given to us in vertex form. So with a leading coefficient of 1 right there, then we know this parabola opens upward. And the coordinates of the vertex are 1 comma negative 1. But we can also see from this graph that it fails a horizontal line test. So this function is not a one-to-one function. And it's only one-to-one functions that have inverses that are also functions. So when we find this inverse, it will not be a function. The technique that we use to find inverses are to switch the domain and range, to switch x and y. X represents values from the domain, y represents values from the range. So we're going to switch x and y. So now we want to solve this equation for y. So we'll add 1 to each side. And we'll take the principal square root of each side. Now, you have to be careful on the left-hand side when you take the square root of a variable. Right now, just by looking at this, I don't know what the range of this function was. So I'm going to have to keep absolute value symbols around that for just a moment and think about if I can remove them or if I have to continue with this absolute value symbol. So if we return back to where we recognize the coordinates of the vertex, the original function h has a domain of all real numbers, and it has a range that was from -1 up to positive infinity. There was no point on the parabola that was below this vertex. When we switched x and y, we did that for the entire sets, and we switched the domain and range. So that meant the domain of this became -1 to positive infinity, and the range became all real numbers. So when I look here for the y value is coming from the range, and since y can be anything here, I know that when I take the principal square root of something, it's going to result in a number that's 0 or positive. But if y were equal to some value that was less than 1, that subtraction would be negative. So I have to keep these absolute value symbols around this. Now I can drop them if I understand the definition of an absolute value, that this splits into two equations. And so that's how I'm going to continue. I know that this y minus 1 could represent the opposite of the square root of x plus 1, or that y minus 1 could equal the square root of x plus 1. And in this situation, we normally just write that as y minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of x plus 1. And then we add 1 to each side. And I think that too many students and even too many teachers skip over this step of introducing this absolute value symbol and really stopping and thinking um, about what it means to take the square root of a variable. So I can't change, this is not a function, so I'm not going to write it using the function notation. I'm not going to call this h inverse because this is not a function. So I hope that helps, and I will talk to you later. Bye.